50, 60, 70 monks in rows chanting, and there was candle lights everywhere, and chanting to this giant gilded statue of the Buddha. And I said, I'm home. The land is so full of power and love and pain that the early shamans were learning from the earth. They were learning from the elements. They were learning from the sun and the moon. Whatever elements are available to you, just go and be present with it. And the shamans used to say that when the world is desperate and the most broken, that is when cacao will explode.
Do you really want to know? Okay, it goes. I should be mentioned with the Greek gods. Ooh, got some bad news, can't fit my shoes. My heart was broke, I fixed it with glue. My demons didn't like it, they weren't amused. Not at all, but I
Welcome, Martha Wright. We're excited to have you on the CayVin Universe. And could you start by getting right into it and just kind of, introducing yourself and, how you got into shamanism and kind of how that led you to become a shamanic medicine woman, if that's the right way to say it.
Yeah, shamanic medicine woman, exactly. So it's kind of a life calling. It's funny, I think everyone is born with the ability to be intuitive, to be psychically sensitive and connected to spirit, because spirit is in all things and it's all around us. Our ancestors are cheering us on, being like, yes, let's send you messages and numbers and animal signs. And we're like, what? What is that? Like, we all are capable of seeing it, witnessing it, and connecting to it. But not everyone has a calling to dedicate their life to service of the greater community. And I didn't know that was my life calling until I was in my 30s. I got the signs, they hit me over the head, and I was like, but what do I do with this information? And then I was like, I guess nothing. And then I continued on in life, and it got louder and harder, the hits and the signs. And then finally I was 25-ish, and I was having my quarter life crisis of who am I? What am I doing with my life? And this would, so my first was like 7, and then again at 15, and then again around like 18, and then 25. And that was when my friend's mom did Reiki on me, and it changed my life. I witnessed this angry, wild woman inside of me, and she scared the poop out of me. But all of a sudden I took a deep breath with it, and my friend's mom, who was doing the session, said that she saw a lion jump out of my solar plexus. And that's exactly where I saw this angry wild woman. And she was in this prison. And as soon as that burst opened up, she was gone. And I was like, wow. Oh, what? Like, there's a crazy woman on the loose. We need to, maybe do some quick checks. Let's go look in the closet, please. But then as it turns out, that was me. That was my inner wildness that had just been suppressed for decades at that point. And so my late 20s through the early 30s was me diving into different modalities, seeing what fit, what didn't fit, trying to refine that connection to that wildness. And then after becoming a mother, I started becoming chronically sick, and the doctors were talking about surgeries. And I just was like, why? What is going on? And I earnestly, just open-heartedly was like, tell me, what do I need to do? What is this about? And that's when I heard the words, you need to become a shaman. And I Googled it, because, as one does, and that's when everything about my childhood signs, the things that I'd always been feeling such a deep connection to the earth, but not knowing how or why. I grew up in cities, and yet I felt like mountains are where my soul would sing, and I was desperate to be surrounded by. I wanted to be like Beauty and the Beast Belle, or Cinderella, like la 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 la, and the birds are like la 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 queen, and I'm like, yes, I wanted that for me, and I just assumed all kids wanted that, but it turns out it wasn't the case. It was just because it was in that soul. Yeah. So I started my first apprenticeship in Egyptian mysteries, did a few Egyptian mystery school apprenticeships, then I moved into core shamanism, did a few years study in that, and became a breathwork teacher at the same time. I was already a Reiki master teacher, and then I found myself at these crossroads where I was like, I need more. My soul is hungry for more, but what? Mm-hmm. And I had a choice between going to the living traditions of Central South America or going with my ancestral practices to the Celtic lands of Scotland and Ireland. And I thought, let me do my diligence. Maybe one day I'll be in Peru or in Guatemala studying with a shaman there. But for now, let me go to my roots and solidify myself before I show up at their doorstep. So I did, and I went and I spent a couple years doing apprenticeships with Celtic spirituality. And it was in there that I went from just being shamanic practitioner to becoming a medicine woman, because it was in the Celtic mysteries that I got reconnected with my patron goddess, if you will, the Morrigan. She's a triple goddess of death and prophecy, of sovereignty. Oh, she's amazing. And her aspect Bive, so there's 3 parts of her. There's the Morrigan, there's Macha, and there's Bive. And I'm not going to get into the semantics about how some areas see it as Nemen and other blah, 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 blah. We're not going to do that. But Bive is like the crone. She's like the terrifying old lady with the stringy white hair who's like crying at the dark side of the street and is wailing at your house because someone's about to die. Like, she looks terrifying. And I was like, come on, y'all. Like, couldn't you give me like Bridget, Spring, Maiden? Like, no, right. I got the terrifying old woman. And turns out she's not terrifying. She's the most hilarious, wonderful, rich in soul and in love and of life and understanding and appreciation of death. She is everything. She's so amazing. And so it was working with a Keening, a Bankincha, a Keening woman, for 9 months in apprenticeship with her and the triple goddess, that I became a medicine woman of the Irish Keen. And so the Keening is the work that I do.
Wow.
Whoa. That is that's such an interesting story. Like, I have like 100 more questions.
Yes, I know.
Because I want to go back to your studies in Egypt, but did you have something too?
I just wanted to, I know too, like, you're mentioning a lot about different locations and like countries that you've been to. So I'm curious, like, which one, if you had to pick one, which one stands out to you the most?
Okay. Well, it's it's
I
tough.
stumped you on that one.
Yeah.
My first ever soul remembering was in Nepal. I was 7 years old. I was in Kathmandu. I walked into a Buddhist temple and I blinked, and when I opened my eyes, it all happened so fast. I was but I was seeing about 50, 60, 70 monks in rows chanting, and there was candle lights everywhere and chanting to this giant gilded statue of the Buddha, and I said, I'm home. And like, I blinked again and my mom said, what? And it's 1992. I'm surrounded by tourists. I've got a bright pink fanny pack on,
Whoa.
And she's like, what? Come on. And I was like, oh, what? Like, and again, just assume those were all, that's like every kid has that, right? But then I would also fast forward. So I think that was really impactful. But I would also fast forward to a couple years ago. I was in Ireland. I did my first ever self-guided, totally alone pilgrimage for 9 days, driving through the northern county. Well, I went through the middle, up north to County Donegal. And that was where I had my massive soul remembering of being a Keening woman, because I think for some time I felt an imposter syndrome of being like, how can I, as an American with all these generations of being Americans, say that I'm an Irish Keener, even though my ancestry is from Ireland. Right. But it's not that close, and I'm not an O'Malley, right? and so when I was there, and I just, it's funny, y'all, like, I just pulled over and I looked at a mountain and I just burst into crying, and I just had this whole life just flood through my mind. And that's when I realized, okay, this is not just me adopting something and wanting to sound really fancy and chic and sexy. Like, this is in my bones. This is in my soul. And so I think that was impactful, because the land is so full of power and love and pain, for sure. But it's got the magic still there, and that helped to reactivate a lot for me.
Wow. That's good.
That definitely is great. And then, like, what are some practices or like places that people can go to experience that? Like we're thankful we live in the country out in Texas, so we have land and stuff, so yeah, we're always connected to nature, and our daughter gets to run around. She has her screen time, but we try to limit it, and so she can be outdoors running around in the grass and things like that. So what places do you feel like is best for people just to connect with that energy of nature?
Okay, well, I'm going to dispel the myths and say you don't have to go anywhere fabulous or fancy to have a sacred connection with spirit, with your ancestors, with nature. If you live in a big city, go to the park. You don't have a park, go to the closest tree outside and just breathe with it. Just breathe. Breathing alone. If you're in the middle of the desert, right? The desert itself is also sacred and beautiful. But right. If there's no, quote, nature around, which of course it's everywhere, then my encouragement is to breathe, connect with the element of air, and just breathe in, breathe out. 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. It's called coherence breath. And just do it simply, gently, patiently. And that in itself will bring you into sacred flow. And that is such a great practice. But yeah, if there's an animal that you're friends with, if there's a tree outside, a riverbank nearby, a desert, whatever elements are available to you, just go and be present with it. Because we live in such a hyperproductive, hyperactive world that is falsely connected, and yet we are so disconnected, that if we can slow down and just for 5 minutes, which may seem like an eternity to so many, just for 5 minutes, it's amazing what we can feel in terms of nervous system relaxation, in terms of bigger connection, and in terms of self connection.
Yeah, I really like that, because you reminded me of, I was scrolling your social media earlier today, and I noticed a video that you posted in April, and it was really sweet. Like, it actually, brought a tear to my eye, because you kind of like made me take a step back and realize that you don't have to find like big things to be able to connect with nature and with healing with nature. You said, go out, pet your dog, or go out and touch a tree, or spend time with loved ones. Like, that is a way of healing, and using nature in that way. So that was really inspiring.
Yeah.
And how I want to go into like your spirit, or your guide angels, or people call them guardian angels, because we've explored it on this show. We've explored energies and dreams and death, and one of the things we explored after death is like becoming a guardian angel. Like if that's a possibility, like we could have guardian angels like you were talking about from centuries ago that are our ancestors, and then we could be guardian angels for our bloodline 100 1,000 years in the future. So how would one, because you feel the energies, and you just, there's times through meditation or through prayer you feel like you're connected, and sometimes like you feel like you're not alone in the room, that you're by yourself, or you get that feeling. So how would you describe connecting with these angels?
So sometimes, we all have multiple psychic gifts, right? So we have the most common ones are seeing, then there's hearing, feeling, and knowing. And it's not that siloed off. A lot of times they're interwoven. So the biggest thing, and I'll answer your question, but the biggest thing that we need to practice is discernment in figuring out when is it a thought that just naturally happens, and when is it intuition. Because our intuition tends to come in very like, oh my God, of course, duh. Wow, that blows me. Like, where did that come from? What a cool thought. And then about a split second to 2 seconds later, our body somatically and energetically responds, or emotionally, I should say, not energetically, emotionally responds to that. A thought drops in and immediately comes with some sort of emotional response. And it usually is a thought that is judgmental, fear-based, or ego-related. So if we can discern between the two, and we can hone our intuition, then as we are sensing our guides around us, we can hear them better. And I say hear loosely in whatever our senses are, because they use our intuition as one of the many ways that they can speak to us. Some people will see, some people will hear them, some people will just know, some people will feel it. Some people might get a song that plays in their head,
Oh gosh,
or a
all the
certain
time.
feeling,
Yeah, with songs.
right? Or a certain feeling on their shoulder, or they'll see a butterfly and that there's grandpa. Like, you know, they will come and they will have a calling card. So we have to be open. We have to be willing to trust that we're not just seeing some coincidence. And then we have to practice our discernment to say, is this a message? And if we get a yes, that's probably a yes. And it's okay. I think a lot of times we get really spooked by it. But in truth, if we think about it, why are they connecting with us? One, because either for good or bad, right? Good or bad is totally a value judgment that I'm not putting on it. But just for layman's terms, right? Why are they connecting with us? Because we've been asking for something that they can offer us. Because they want to see us succeed. Because they love us. And there is some sort of contract connection that helps guide us from point A to point B in this chapter that we're in. And when I say succeed, I don't mean like modern American, you have 6-figure salary. It's like, I'm dealing with this struggle. Let's help you move through that. That's what I mean by success. And so they are present with us, and they are invested in our success, and they are invested in our healing and our growth, because as we grow and evolve, we help them heal. And we help strengthen our descendants. And we do the work not only for ourselves now, but because we are often our own ancestors. We are often in the same lineage, generations. It's usually 7 or more. But we are usually in our own lineage. And so if you think about it, we're hopping between 3-4 different family lines that are all probably related. Wouldn't you want to set yourself up for a solid next life? Yes. So
Yeah.
do the
That's
work
true.
now,
Wow.
hook up the family, and let's go.
Yeah. That's crazy. And then, yeah, like you said, what's coincidence? Because at what point because I'm terrible at that, where I get signs and I get in denial about it. Like, oh, that's not a sign. That's just because of this. Try to find the, scientific explanation, I guess, or something like that. And it just most likely comes down to it's just a coincidence. But how many coincidences can you have before you're like, okay, what is, there's something at play here.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. I'm wondering what are because I'm sure I feel like everybody kind of deals with these things when they're in certain practices like this. So I'm wondering what are some common misconceptions of shamanism that you have heard that you're that's completely untrue, or what do other people think?
So one, shamana, what was that? Shamanism is not demonism. I remember, so I come from a Southern Christian family.
Oh boy.
And
okay.
my first thing I got was, does this mean you're working with the devil? And I said,
Wow.
no, Mom, no. And I love her because she was so supportive, but also so afraid. And so no, there's no demon worship, there's no devil worship. Honestly, those energies are just aspects of chaos. And not all chaos is bad. So if we think about it in those Christian terms about working with the devil, if it's fucking your life up, then maybe there's something in there that's teaching you something about what you should not be doing anymore, or maybe what you need more of to get out of that rut. In shamanism, we talk a lot about trickster spirits. Those are also aspects of chaos. So shamanism is, I think, another major misconception is that it is relegated to the Americas, and it's not. It is in every continent. It is as ancient as people in community are, and it has existed across time and space without interconnection or communication. This is what's so fascinating about core shamanism, is it's taking the things that overlap, that Venn diagram, that overlap across time and space, where people did not have connection with each other, and saying, holy smokes, these are the same rituals. These are the same rite of passages. These are the same ceremonies. These are the same plant and medicine allies, though different names. And so there is a lot of overlap. And the reason why that is because we, speaking, kind of loosely here, the early shamans were learning from the earth. They were learning from the elements. They were learning from the sun and the moon. And so if we're learning from this ancient and original ancestor or ancestors, of course we're getting the same information. It's just different faces and names, because someone in Alaska or northern Canada isn't going to understand what it means to live in the desert. So they're going to have different faces and names. But I say this because shamanism is something that it exists deep in the ancient knowing of all of us. And we all, in some way, have an ancestral connection to it, whether it's shamanism or animism, this idea that spirit is in all life. It exists for all of us. So if we can get past the labels of it and realize that it is one of the most beautiful methods to deepening our understanding of self, our understanding of God, our understanding of nature and each other, and it's all about compassion and permission, but like it's compassion and wisdom and truth and love. So I will let you be what you need to be for you. I'm not going to try to control you or tell you how to live your life, but I will be here walking alongside of you when you're ready to heal. These are the things about shamanism that are so gorgeous, and I absolutely love them. And everything comes back to, who am I learning from? I'm learning from the trees. I'm learning from the water. I'm listening to the storm. I'm watching the birds fly and listening to them talk to each other. That's it. I'm not listening to influencers. Like, no offense to them, but I'm not, right? So it's not the devil. It's not just for one group of people. It is for all of us. And I think it's one of the most beautiful medicines to bring us back together.
Yeah.
So what are some of these practices look like, and some of the, I guess, medicine rituals that you do?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, first of all, yes. No, I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it because I'm going to be real with y'all. I'm like the worst. Everyone's like, what are you doing for solstice? I'm like, having some ice cream? Like going to bed early? I am a little bit delinquent, but I have a solid altar space, so I think we're good.
Okay,
I think me and Spirit are good. I get my herbs every day, and I work with Spirit, and I sing to them. It's all good. No, but what can anyone do? Start living with the seasons. Start living with what we call the wheel of the year. And different indigenous ancestral practices will have different colors and names and animals associated with each of the seasons and the directions. I deviate even a little bit from the Celtic wheel because it just, the way it makes sense in my body, that's what I go with. But living by the seasons means, what is the wisdom of the season? What is the element associated with that? What is the wisdom and the medicine of that element? What is the opportunity to grow and heal with this season, this direction, this element? So to just very quickly, and if anyone's interested in learning more, I'm so happy to help people because I'm actually building a course. There's loads of courses out there, but I'm building my own, probably starting in spring 2027.
Nice.
But let's start with where we begin, which is in the dark. We start in the Celtic practice. We begin the day with rest because we all begin in the womb. We begin in the dark. We die and we end in the dark. So we go into the darkness of Samhain, which is winter. That is, for me, water. That is warriorship. That is the darkness when everything else is just not, we're not farming. We're not going for hikes. We are inside. We got our hearth lit up and we are just spending time in here. What is ready to be witnessed? What is ready to be grieved, to be expressed, to be felt? And let's be like water. Let's move around these challenges, not to push through them and fight, not to avoid or overthink, but just to live with it, feel with it, and like water, slowly whittle away the rock as over time, just through softness and presence. And then we move into spring, which is the beginning of light returning and is the beginning of life growing. So what is starting to emerge after doing that deep healing? What is starting to emerge within the self about how you want to be in the world? What do you want to experience with the world as co-creation? What do you want to seed into the earth and grow as a practice? And how can you start to let love back in? Then we move into, and that's Imbolc is spring. Then we move into Beltane or Beltane, which is summer. And that is going to be fire and heat and summer. And we are out. And of course, if you're in the northern hemisphere, right? Yeah, y'all in Texas,
right, no,
you're like, we
feeling,
got it.
We're feeling that.
We got that fire and heat, yep.
And that's going to be expression, doing, being, living, laughing, loving. This is a time of sexuality and sensuality, of I'm going to take all these ideas that I started to percolate with, and I'm going to just feed them and grow them and nurture them, but then like put it into manifested action. And then we move into, I forgot the whole, spring is also air. Air is truth, so breath work, right? Summer is going to be fire, and so that is going to be about alchemy. What have we already seen that's not really going to work out long term? How can we alchemize that to support and nourish the things that are growing? And also, because I think that there's something very balancing about winter and summer, both being times for healing. And then we move into Lunasa, which is the harvest, which is fall or autumn. And that's when we stop working so hard. We start letting the days get a little bit longer, or shorter, and the nights getting a little bit longer. We start to reap what we sowed. How is that working for us? How are we nourishing our bodies and preparing ourselves communally and personally for the winter ahead? What is ready to be let go of, so we can start taking inventory of what worked and also what didn't work, so we can prepare ourselves to grieve that which did not grow. And then we move back into winter. And autumn I see as earth as well. And earth is that ancestral connection to me. Others will say ancestors or with water, because that's how you access them. But for me, again, my practice is earth, is kind of thinking about roots, interconnectedness, interwovenness.
And that's so cool. That's a perfect example too of like how everything connects to, like, the earth and nature and the seasons. Like that's really so cool. And then like, how do you feel about like what do they call that whenever you like you're barefoot on grass? Because you just gave me that idea right now. Grounding. Like, how do you feel about that? Even like what people do it with copper too, or like yeah.
Copper's a great activating element for sure. So what I would recommend, because grounding is awesome, right? Earth Mother's like, yes, please come. Yeah. But it is so kind of hyper modern of us to be like, send your roots down into the earth and get grounded. Yeah. What does the earth want? Like, does she want you to ground there? Can we ask her permission, please? Right. Like, consent is constant. Yes. Right?
The earth needs to give consent, yes.
Right. Like, of course she's going to say yes, but wouldn't it be really lovely to be asked first? Yeah. And so we say to her, like, what I do when I'm getting ready to ground, I'll say, "Ooh, Lord, I need this." And I'm like, Earth Mother, please, will you reach up and meet me where my feet reach you? Will you hold my energy so I feel your love and protection? So I feel your support. So I feel the medicines of the earth, the animals, the plants, the crystals, the mycelium, so that I may know that you are me and I am a part of you. Will you receive my energy as I reach down into your bosom to feel held like a child again, because I love you and I need you right now? And usually like that does it.
Dang.
Yeah,
that's really cool. I still have like 90 more questions, but we might be running out of time here. But it's great.
One thing I wanted to know is because on your website you have like a whole page dedicated to cacao, so I wanted to know like what are like the benefits of that. Like, I know it's just chocolate, but like I'm curious like to know more about that.
Yeah. So there are so many benefits, but first of all, it is chocolate, right? But it's not chocolate the way we know it in the store. Cacao is showing up on shelves. That doesn't always mean it's grown, harvested, and processed ritualistically in ancestral practice. So when we follow the indigenous creators, the crafters, the Mayans especially, if you come down into like Costa Rica and down into Colombia and Peru, like these areas that are a part of this, and then it's even also happening and growing in Ghana, Nicaragua. No, Nicaragua is Central America, Nigeria, and we're starting to see some cacao production in South Asia. So it is across the world. And the shamans used to say that when the world is desperate and the most broken, that is when cacao will explode to be the heart medicine to heal us, to remind us of our connection to the earth and to each other. And so if it doesn't feel like it socio-politically already, here's the cacao booming out of these different continents. Beautiful. But there are so many health benefits. I couldn't name them all, but there's 32 minerals and vitamins. There's a handful of amino acids. There are these beautiful chemical components like anandamine, PEA, which is like phenylalanine. I'm not, that's not me.
I'm terrible
it's called
at
that, PEA. and theobromine, because it is, of course, a theobromine cacao fruit. And so it is a grounding stimulant that is all about that bliss molecule comes up. So it is nurturing to the bones. It is nourishing to the muscle. It is helps with the heart healing, so it helps with blood flow and heart health. And it also is really great at moving grief and anger out, because that's really the shadow side of love, and helping us feel the forgiveness and the acceptance at times for that which we have experienced, so that we can move out of grief and rage and shame and back into love. So when it is grown, tended, harvested, and processed through ritual ancestral practice, it comes to us beaming with spirit. I'm just going to hop up real quick because I have some right here from a shout out to Mayan Wisdom Project, who I love their cacao. And, they do a class and you get to meet the farmers, Hector and Elsa. And it's it's absolutely beautiful. And there are other... Right, and they what I love about them as well is they have dozens of local crafts. Mayan community, they're part all Mayan community, but they have local craftspeople that make the things. Like they make the jicaras, they make these little baggies, they make the cacao, and so it comes in this little paste bar. Oh my God, you guys are like trying to hop offline, and I'm like, let me tell you more.
No, yeah, we got to do this again too, because man,
look at how rich that looks.
Oh, it is phenomenal, and it's quite brittle because when it's processed this way, it is intact with the spirit and all the medicine. When it is going through the processing that one does through like Hershey or Lindt or whatever, it loses everything. They take out the cocoa butter. They add in a lot of preservatives and also like Dutch alkaline things, and then they put in sugar as well as double the fat again to kind of make it more melty and tasty. But I find that because this is so bitter, I actually find that it's richer, and I've grown to love it, and now I can't palate chocolate bars.
Oh wow, that's crazy. Yeah. How would you compare it to like regular dark chocolate? Is it like even a more bitter?
When you get up to 80%, you're getting close.
Oh wow,
you're getting close. But that's part of this medicine of the plant spirit, though.
Right,
it's
exactly.
Like if you can move past your expectations of sweet, and you can begin to open up to the bitterness, then you can find that just past that bitterness is this rich, earthy, I wouldn't say umami, but it's this rich, earthy, sultry, soft deliciousness that is chocolate. It's really quite wonderful. And then, the way I hold cacao circles, whether it's individual, online, in person, groups of people or not, it's all about, let's learn who are the people who made it. How are the practices? How do we honor them in our modern way? How do I honor them in this way without adopting or appropriating? And then now the medicine's kicked in because I've done enough talking. Now we go on a journey. You get to meet the cacao plant spirit yourself. Go on a journey with cacao.
Wow.
Come back, and we then process together the experience, and then move somatically through whatever needs to be addressed as what's come up, because that's the caffeine kicking in at that point.
Wow.
crazy
This has been a really interesting
I
conversation,
know.
Martha. This is great.
So good.
Well, just before we end, we do all like to want to give you the floor where you can say, your social media and where people can, purchase. If you have any courses available right now or any plans set up, where can people find that?
Yeah, so the best place to reach me is going to be probably either on Instagram, so it's at Martha Medicine Woman, spelled out, or on my website, which is Martha MW, as in medicine woman, but it's also my initials, so that's fun.
Nice.
So marthamw.com. And on there, I work virtually, I work internationally. Spirit puts me to be out there to work with people when they're called. I show up. They make it work for me. So reach out to me on there. I do have classes. A class called Check Yourself is all about the foundations. It's what I learned over years, condensed into one package, not because I think I have everything for you, but because it's basically taking the introductory foundational content and making it available to you. What is energy? How does it work and flow? What do we do with the triggers when we receive them? How do we bring self-awareness, spiritual self-awareness into the self? Class 3 is all about boundaries. How do we live, work with, and affirm boundaries? And class 4 is how do we hone our psychic gifts? And the reason I created Check Yourself is because it's creating that foundation in the self with connection to spirit. So that way, when you're going out into this wild west that is spiritual, modern spirituality now, you can be discerning. This is not the teacher for me. This is the modality for me. I feel called to this retreat, but not that one. And we can really understand those signs that you're talking about earlier, Vinny, and thinking about, I get it now. So that class is available. It's online, and I follow your progress. I check in with you. We text, we talk on the phone. You're not doing it just online by yourself. I'm so present with you.
Right.
Yes.
But yeah, I would love for people to feel so encouraged to try that out.
That's so
Yes.
great. Yeah, thank you so much, Martha.
Thank you.
Yeah, we hope to do this again soon because, like I said, we really got to do another deep dive into, because the topic just interests me so much. And yeah, I'm glad you can give your insight and wisdom on what you know. So yeah, do you have anything else before we go?
Yeah, I don't think so. No, this has just been a really great conversation. Thank you so
Yes,
much,
thank
Martha.
you.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really grateful.